from Das Alte Rathaus here in Hamburg, where this first ever FIDE Chess World Cup is being played. And tonight's game is between Anatoly Karpov, the world champion, and a man who must be the most unfancied outsider of all time, Slim Bouaziz of Tunisia. Now, the position in the group is that Jan Timman of the United Kingdom has 3 points with 1 game to go, and Anatoly Karpov has 3 points with 2 games to go, and both of those are against Bouaziz. With me, as usual, Bill Hartston. Bill, Bouaziz is a kind and gentle man. One would not want to hurt his feelings, but I don't think he'd mind being called a bit of a rabbit in this company. Can you see him not being destroyed by Karpov?
Well, he's only lost 1 game out of the 4 he's played so far. He'll fight, but I don't want to make any predictions. Just watch the games.
This is the position. Karpov has these 2 games to go. He's played 1 less than Jan Timman. Bouaziz, of course, a rabbit only in relation to Karpov. He's been doing extremely well in this tournament so far. Slightly better, perhaps, than I might have expected. Sarouan will not have been too pleased, and Jan Timman only managed 2 draws against him. And, of course, he did reach the Mexican interzonal and didn't do at all badly in that. But playing against a world champion like Anatoly Karpov, who is in the sort of form he's in at the moment, that is a different kettle of fish. This game, in fact, has already started, and this is the position they've reached after 21 moves.
And Slim Bouaziz is playing very soundly, very carefully, and not giving the world champion any chance to attack him at all. He's just been systematically exchanging pieces and really seems to have a level position.
Which will be very much to Jan Timmann's liking, because what he would love to see, of course, is to see Bouaziz pull off a huge surprise and win, but if not manage that, at least draw.
Yes, he needs 2 draws, 1 point from Slim Bouaziz to retain any chances for Timman to qualify for the final.
And it is Slim Bouaziz to play.
Yes, in this position I have to restrict his pieces on the board. Maybe I play Rook E1 or Queen E3, I don't know. I must decide in this moment, crucial moment. But with a great player like Karpov, I think it's better to exchange immediately the queens. Yes, I play Queen E3.
Now, if I don't exchange queens, so I must go back with the queen, and there is no sense to play for a win. After the exchange, he would have weak pawn structure, especially because of pawn on c3. So I exchange queens.
Yes, I exchange queens.
Now I must fix the pawn structure on the king side in order to have his pawn on g4 and g2, and then maybe at one moment I will attack this pawn with the knight from f6, so g5.
Yes, it's an interesting move. Then we have 2 possibilities in this moment. Maybe d4 or rook f1. d4 is interesting, but I need to control the file, the f file. Maybe rook f1, it's not bad. I play this move.
But now white threats with rook f6, so I play king g7.
Now I need to play my king on d2 and d4 and queen d3 maybe, or queen f2 and queen g3, because I need to exchange his pieces on the board. Yes, king f2.
Now I try to improve my knight. Knight on c6 against pawn on c3 is always bad, so I must play with knight to somewhere. The best place is, the best square is d7, from which I can play knight f6 or knight c5. And white just wait for the actions of black pieces So I have a time to play knight b8.
That's really interesting. Knight and rook back on their home squares, but Karpov's playing this extremely systematically now. He has an idea just to bring this knight to d7 and then c5 to attack this pawn on d3. I think that's what he meant by the pawn structure being weak with the pawn on c3. It leaves this pawn on d3 undefended. I think when Bouaziz put his rook onto f1, he was just expecting Karpov to agree to the exchange of rooks by bringing the black rook to f8. But the world champion has no such intention. You don't get a draw with Karpov until the score sheets are signed.
Bouaziz to play.
Then I have to prepare d4 and to attack e-pawn. Yes, knight f3.
Now, if I play knight to d7, I don't give the possibility to play d4 because of knight f6, and I have threat to take both pawns on e4 or g4 with check. So after knight d7, he has no move d4, knight d7.
Now, I don't know. d4 is bad move for me because he can play knight f6. I don't know. But in this moment, I need to protect my pawn on g4. I think it's good to play my king on g3.
Now the white king is far from the queen side, and there is no sense to play knight f6 because king already protected the pawn on g4. But I have very nice square on c5 to attack d3 pawn, and from this point of view he has no chance to play d4 because pawn on e4. I play knight c5.
He attacks my pawn on g3. I cannot play d4 because my pawn on e4 is attacking by his knight. In this moment, I have to play knight e1 or rook d1. I think here about rook d1. Yes, rook d1.
I must play with the pawns on queen side. It's better to push my a pawn to a4 maybe, and to free my rook from a6 to b6, a5.
Yes, in this position he prevents before. Now, why my king is on g3? I need to play my king on e2 and to protect my pawn on g3. Yes, I play king f2.
King f2. If he goes with the king to queen side, then I can play with the knight on d7 and then f6, and he has only defense with knight on h2. It's not bad for me, but first of all I try to improve my queen side. I must play active with my rook. It's better to keep my rook before to push my pawns on queen side. And first rook goes to b6, rook a6.
It's an interesting move. Here I need to have my king near my queen side. Then I have to play, I think, my king on e2 and d2 and c2.
This is a decisive mistake already. White should play b3, but now it's simple. If I play knight a4, he has no b3 because of knight takes c3. Only move rook d2 or rook b1, then I play rook b6, and I take pawn on b2 or c3. Knight a4.
One really must have the feeling sometimes playing against Karpov that one's being engulfed by a boa constrictor.
Yes, boa constrictors and crocodiles are the animals that Karpov is most likened to. I think we can be sure that Slim Bouaziz overlooked this knight move. It's attacking the two pawns, b2 and c3. And if that pawn on b2 is defended by the white rook, then black will just bring his rook to b6 to attack it again. Eventually this b-pawn will have to move, which will abandon the c-pawn. I've had the feeling in this endgame that Karpov's been playing all the moves. Slim just seems to be going to and fro.
Bouaziz to play.
Oh, he surprises me by this move. I didn't see it. Now I must play energetically. I need to play very careful. Yes, he attacks my pawn on b2, and I cannot play b3 because he takes on c3. Oh, I didn't see this move. I have some chances maybe when I push my pawn on d4. I try to play this move. Yeah, g4.
d4. Now he takes my pawn on e5. But it's not necessary for me to defend this pawn because I take all pawns on the queen side. What is the best move? To take immediately on b2 or to play rook b6 first? If I take on b2, he plays rook b1. And I play rook b6. He takes on e5, I play knight c4. He takes on b6. Black has advantage, but I must get more. Let's start with rook b6. This is winning. Rook b6.
Yes, now he threat my pawn on b2 with a knight and with a rook. Yes, it's difficult for me now. I have to exchange, I think, on e5, and I try to have some chances for a draw. It's difficult. I try. D takes e5.
Now it's simple. I take on b2 with the rook, check.
Yes. Now Karpov has some advantage, but I also have some chances maybe for draw. It is difficult. Now I have to struggle to find a good move with white. It's difficult position now for me. Very difficult. I don't like my position. Yes. I think King f1. I play this move.
Now if I take on c3, he can play rook c1 because of rook b1, and I exchange rooks. I take on c3.
Yes. I suffer. Now my position is bad. Mon Dieu, comme j'ai mal joué. C'est terrible. I don't like to lose this game. It's difficult to accept for losing. Yes, I don't like to lose. It's hard for me. Yes, I try. Perhaps I take on d6. Perhaps he can do some mistakes. I don't know.
Now if I take rook on d1, he plays d7. I can get this passed pawn. So I must take on d6 back.
Yes. It's difficult. I have now to take his pawn on d6 and to have some chances. I don't know. I try with this move.
I give check. He has no king f2 because of knight takes e4 check. Rook b1 check.
If I play king f2, he takes.
To f6.
He doesn't like to give me some chances. It's terrible. Yes, now I need to protect my pawn on e2. My position is very difficult. I suffer of this position. I think the only move, rook d2.
White protects pawn on e2. Do I need the pawn on e4? No, there is no need to get pawn on e4. I can take it any time I wish. I play with the b pawn, b5.
How can I do now? I don't know. I try. Rook c2.
If I play b4, he plays a3, I can take even on a3. He takes my knight on c3, I play a2 and a1 queen, b4.
Now I have no possibilities. I don't like my king on f1. And I need to play my knight. But how? It is difficult. Very difficult. Yes, I suffer for this position. I need to play my king on f2.
Now it's better to take first pawn on a2, rook a1.
Yes. He needs to take all my points. Terrible. Doesn't like to give me some chances. I have no moves now. I give him a pawn for nothing. Check.
I take this pawn with the king.
Yes. Now I have to play my knight on d3 or f3. But with f3 I think is better than d3 because I can play my knight on d4 and I can do something. I don't know. I try this move, knight f3 check.
I can play king d5 now, but maybe better to play king e4. If he threat with a mate after rook d2, I have rook takes a2 and pin his rook. Yes, king e4 more active.
Yes. What can I do? Again. Knight d4.
Of course, I can take now pawn on a2 and win immediately. But it seems to me there is a mate situation. If I play king d3, he plays with knight, I give check on e4. Yes, king d3.
I don't play well. Cannot understand myself. Why I played like that? Yes, to give him check on d2, but how? Maybe rook d2 check or knight b3 attacks his pawn on e5. Yeah, knight b3.
Knight e4 check.
Oh my god. Zut, merde. Je n'ai pas vu ce coup. Oh, mamma mia. J'abandonne, I resign.
Meanwhile, in another part of the hall, as they say, Eugene Torre from the Philippines was about to give the public a moment of real delight and himself a moment of real pain through Jan Timman, who hadn't really had the happiest of tournaments until this moment. This was one of these little joys and delights that one gleans from these tournaments to savour. This was the position in their game.
And Jan Timman was black. He, at the moment, has a pawn less, Torre white, and we must remember there's a brilliancy prize in this tournament. Everyone thought it had been booked by Karpov for his win against Syra but just look what happened here. The black queen on e1 is dangerously close to the white king, but white's just prepared to bring his knight to c3 to chase the queen out, be attacked by the rook then. But he never got a chance to do that. Timman to move, played a really brilliant finish. The knight came to f3, checking the white king. And now, well, it seems the knight can be taken. So just look at that. If white takes the knight, then Timman was ready with a queen sacrifice. Queen takes the bishop here. White must take the queen with his king. Now a bishop check. And the king can't go to the left because the black rook controls the whole of the e-file. So he must go to g1, and then there's a rook mate on the back rank. Rook checking the king, and the black bishop taking away the only square from the king. So let's just go back to the position we started in. After this knight f3 check move, he didn't take the knight. He saw that queen sacrifice brilliancy. Instead, Torre moved his king. King moves out of check, and now was shocked by another queen sacrifice. Queen took the bishop with check. And white has only one move. Actually, white resigned here, but if he takes the queen, which is his only move, there's an even prettier mate. Bishop comes to h3. And an extraordinarily unusual mate with the bishop and knight just mating this white king. Very brilliant. It's very rare you find two queen sacrifices in variations.
As I was saying, a moment of real delight. Meanwhile, the serious part of the tournament still going on. Karpov, having beaten Bouaziz, has a clear lead of 1 point over Jan Timman, who has another game against Syra. Karpov then leading just half a point in his return game with Bouaziz.
Karpov, of course, now needs only a draw to be absolutely certain of reaching the final. If he loses, he could still tie with Jan Timman, and the game started. Karpov's played d4, but I doubt if he'll be happy with a draw. Karpov likes to win all his games. And maybe Bouaziz too would like to finish this tournament with a real attempt to beat the world champion. Karpov's often complained about the way everybody wants to beat the world champion. It's one of the occupational hazards. And Karpov's playing a quiet opening so far. d4 and knight f3. And fianchettoing his king's bishop, very safe.
Bouaziz playing very briskly as well.
Yes, Bouaziz is very well prepared in the openings. He studies the game a lot. So both sides castled. And it's a King's Indian defence, and now we must see how Karpov will decide to react in the centre.
What are his sensible options here?
Normally white would play his c-pawn forward here to c4 to take more central space. Karpov's thinking about it.
And it'll be interesting to see what he does, whether he thinks he can play e4 straight away or not. Bill, what do you think he can play, most likely?
I think the c4 is the normal move here to take space in the centre. But Karpov's thinking a little now.
Ah, Well, he hasn't played e4.
Much more restrained, this move, knight to d2. Instead of taking the centre with c4 and d4, he seems to be trying to advance his e-pawn to e4, knight protecting that square.
Knight b8, c6.
Very aggressive development by Bouaziz. Quite often the knight goes to d7 in such positions, but he's going further forward, attacking the white centre.
e2, e4.
And Karpov's got his big pawn centre.
Bishop c8, g4.
Now that bishop's pinning the knight to f3, but the knight on f3 to the queen, so he's threatening actually to take this d4 pawn. Nice to see Bouaziz trying to take the initiative so early in this game.
d4, d5.
So the attacked pawn advances, attacking the knight.
Knight c6, e5.
And Black's adding to his pressure on f3, that pinned knight. But I should think Karpov's quite happy with his position. He always likes this space advantage given by a pawn on d5 against a pawn on d6.
h2, h3.
Chasing away that annoying bishop.
Knight e5 takes f3.
An exchange of minor pieces.
Knight d2 takes f3.
Simple
And
recap.
Karpov has offered a draw. Well, well.
How extraordinary. Well, they got to move 10. It shows that Karpov had just intended just to play a few moves and offer a draw and reach the final. But I really don't think Bouaziz should have accepted it.
And I must say the players are fair scuttled away from the stage. Perhaps they're slightly ashamed. A 10-move draw really is a Grandmaster draw on a fairly sensational scale.
Yes, perhaps it's a pity that Karpov only needed a draw, or he would have had a more exciting game.
It could have been as scandalous as the West German-Austria draw in the Football World Cup, but as it turns out, it's not quite so important, because while Karpov and Bouaziz were having their Grandmaster draw, John Nunn could only manage to draw his final game against Yasser Seirawan of the USA. So this is how Anatoly Karpov got to the final. 4.5 points, 3 good wins, 2 of them against Seirawan, 1 against Bouaziz. And perhaps the real disappointment in that group was Yasser Seirawan, the United States champion, who just managed to collect 2 points. Right in Group B, the other finalist, Boris Spassky, who's been going through this tournament like a train. He's dropped only half a point, that against Jan Timman. And if there was a disappointment there, then I suppose really it was Jan Timman, the Netherlands Grandmaster, who was ranked second in the world for a very long time just behind Karpov.